Confucianism disrupts the law with literature, and chivalry violates prohibitions with martial arts, was a program for social governance proposed by the legalists of the pre-Qin period to strengthen centralized power, social control. Opponents argued that this severely damaged the original foundation of society, while supporters argued that harsh punishments were necessary for social development in chaotic times. Both sides, in fact, presented explanations that benefited their own understanding. From the results, Qin's social governance was indeed highly efficient and unified after its reforms. Before Qin Shi Huang, the reformed Qin became the strongest state in the Warring States period, both an object of hostility from the other 6 states and an example that other states aspired to emulate. The reforms of Qin and the other states were more or less successful, so we cannot interpret this phrase representing the legalist political program in a proper way, or even simply and crudely interpret it from the perspective of human nature and rule by man, or from the perspective of political or doctrinal factional struggles and ideological conflicts. History often provides its own answer, without the need for later generations' far-fetched interpretations and historical revisionism. When society and the state become rogue states, the Confucian scholars who embody the essence of legalism use literature to disrupt the law, and the knights-errant who use force to break the law, thus highlighting their true political and cultural value. When laws are no longer controlled by those who believe in or abide by the law becomes a tool of those who control it. Those who control are often not the same as rulers. When the imperial governance machine is in operation, the grassroots legal officials are the direct controllers of this system. They were responsible for specific case judgments and the detailed interpretation of each legal provision. The spirit of each era was determined by the values of grassroots officials, something even the rulers themselves were powerless to change, because so-called autocratic power cannot simply intervene in the robust grassroots legal system and its enforcement. Knights-errant are mostly understood as positive figures who sacrifice themselves for righteousness, dying for those who understand them. However, when discussing a group, it's inevitable to differentiate in detail, focusing on the evolution of knights-errant. Knights-errant who rid the people of evil have existed throughout history, but as society became increasingly thuggish during the Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties, the knight-errant group evolved into hooligans. These hooligans didn't engage in production. They even robbed and plundered. They claimed to rob the rich to help the poor. But historically, few were truly capable. Most were simply bullies and tyrants. Thus, the Confucian scholars using their writings to disrupt the law, and the knights-errant using their martial arts to break the law, finally became a tangible reality over the past 800 years. In his book Times, The Evolution of Chinese National Character *, Zhang Hongji argues that the Chinese national character is not static, but gradually deteriorates with the strengthening of autocratic systems. He sees Qin Shi Huang as the beginning of this process, but I disagree. Whether it was the Qin dynasty, which adhered to legalism, the Han dynasty, which combined hegemonic and benevolent rule, the Weijin era, or the Sui and Tang dynasties, where Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism flourished, the people, clans, and even the rulers did not exhibit obvious tyrannical genes. Even if tyrannical rulers existed, society did not accept them, and naturally, the common people did not praise or emulate them. However, the Song dynasty saw a change. Firstly, the Song dynasty is often perceived as an era of openness, tolerance, and great commercial development. But history often plays unexpected tricks. In reality, autocratic dynasties are never inherently good or bad. People simply choose to romanticize or avoid certain aspects. Firstly, foot binding for women began in the Song dynasty. Secondly, The common belief that 5 or 10 families share a single knife was not an invention of the Yuan dynasty, but rather appeared in the Song dynasty. This is unacceptable to many, but it is a fact. Just as many social governance policies of the Qing dynasty were copied from the Ming dynasty rather than being independently invented. However, starting from the Yuan dynasty, a trend of hooliganization emerged in the national character, characterized by a decline in social morality, the collapse of rules, a culture of bullying the weak and fearing the strong, and the rise of unscrupulous means, closely intertwined with power. This contrasts sharply with the aristocratic spirit, scholar-official culture, and commoner culture of the earlier periods, Spring and Autumn period to Tang and Song dynasties. The Yuan dynasty marked the beginning of this trend, the Ming dynasty its peak, and the Qing dynasty further added a layer of servility to this already hooliganized state. The Mongol rule of the Yuan dynasty destroyed the Han Chinese cultural elite, leading to a rapid deterioration of social morality and the emergence of hooliganism. Its main characteristics were the infiltration of hooligans into officialdom and the close integration of the hooligan class with autocratic power. Because the elite had already been largely lost in resistance and massacres, even the surviving elites would drastically alter their survival strategies in the face of colonizers. Firstly, the Yuan dynasty abolished the imperial examination system, destroyed cultural classics, and massacred Confucian scholars. The status of Han Chinese intellectuals plummeted from the head of the 4 classes to 9 out of 10 beggars are scholars, creating a cultural break due to the disappearance of the elite. Without the constraints of Confucian ideology, the rulers allowed social customs to flourish unchecked. More and more Han Chinese, due to their low social status and inability to follow the proper path, chose to curry favor with the powerful and wealthy, forming a class of ruffians and scoundrels. During the Yuan dynasty, these ruffians and scoundrels ran rampant throughout the country, forcing even the Yuan emperors to specifically dispatch officials to study how to deal with their rampant hooligans. Even the Yuan emperors disapproved of the ruffian class that helped them rule the vast southern territories of China, demonstrating the severity of the situation. Secondly, the flourishing of popular culture, such as opera, replaced refined culture, reflecting the emerging trend of hooligans on a spiritual level. While the prosperity of opera itself is a cultural phenomenon, not a reflection of hooligans, the key issue lies in the fact that the content of opera reflected the barbarity and injustice of the then hooligans-dominated society and government. The book argues that the Yuan dynasty broke the backbone of the Chinese people, laying the foundation for subsequent hooligans. Ming dynasty, the great development and peak of hooliganism. The hooligan spirit permeated all levels of society in the Ming dynasty, from the emperor to the lowest strata. Social rules were reversed, and cunning and unscrupulous means became the way to survive. The book dedicates a chapter to the hooligans of the Ming dynasty. If the Yuan dynasty emperors turned a blind eye to the behavior of rogues, then the Ming dynasty emperors never considered it a problem. The founding emperor, Zhu Yuanzhang, rose from humble origins as a rogue and invented the political rogue rule, its core 16 characters. No rules, no bottom line, bullying the weak and fearing the strong, and using any means necessary, a trend that spread downwards. The 5 arts of keeping the people ignorant, most relevant to the present day, did not originate from Shangyang, but rather from the political Machiavellianism that developed and took shape during the Ming dynasty. At the emperor level, Zhu Yuanzhang was ruthless and cruel, depriving scholars of their freedom. For example, the Confucian scholar Xiaoboqi and his nephew cut off their fingers to resist officials, resulting in their execution and confiscation of their property. Emperor Zhengde, Zhu Hozhao, adopted over 100 rogues as his sons and pursued virgin widows in Yangzhou. Emperor Shizong of Ming was sexually perverse, demanding aphrodisiacs from his ministers, and having sex with dozens of women a day. At the official level, officials vied for favor by offering secret sexual techniques. For example, Hu Zongxian presented 14 techniques to please the emperor. On a societal level, the cunning gained power and established themselves, while those who upheld propriety suffered hunger and cold. The lower classes were corrupt, and counterfeiting was rampant. The spirit of chivalry declined, with people willingly clinging to power, as seen in Times The Three Heroes and Five Gallants*, where heroes called themselves criminals and took pride in submission. Chivalrous figures were thoroughly degenerated into thugs and became henchmen for certain political or local forces. Both sides in Times, Watermargin Times, have chapters depicting the keeping of chivalrous figures or thugs and their subsequent conflicts, and Jin Yong's Times, Condor Trilogy Times, also reflects this historical reality, with the Liao, Jin, and Yuan dynasties recruiting Jianghu Renshi, Jianghu figures, during their conquest of the Central Plains. While novels cannot corroborate history, they do provide an apt and direct view of this change. The book points out that the thuggish character of the Ming dynasty became an important component of the Chinese character, and society as a whole exhibited an inverted rule. There's always someone stronger, and the wicked must be subdued by the wicked. The Qing dynasty, a combination of rogue spirit and servility. Building upon the rogue spirit of the Ming dynasty, the Qing dynasty further strengthened its autocracy, leading to a national character degenerating into a slave culture. Rogue traits and servility intertwined, resulting in a numb, cowardly populace that lost its personal dignity. The Qing dynasty perfected its autocratic system, instigating literary inquisitions and eliminating dissent, thoroughly enslaving intellectuals. Emperors demanded absolute obedience from their ministers, viewing the pursuit of fame as a curse. For example, Emperor Yongzheng opposed ministers' pursuit of fame, threatening them with execution. During the Qianlong era, it was emphasized that only sycophants were employed, not renowned officials. British envoy Lord Macartney, during his visit to China, recorded the Chinese as utterly servile, numb, like walking corpses. Rogue spirit persisted as a survival tactic of ruthlessness, but coupled with extreme obedience, the nation transformed from robust to base and violent. These consequences continue to influence us today. Most people only understand the survival tactics that emerged after rogue spirit and use these methods to explain everything over the past 5,000 years. Among them are those with malicious intentions and ulterior motives, as well as those who are foolishly brainwashed without realizing it. The destruction of civilization lies not only in the burning of books and burying of scholars, and the severing of the moral order by foreign colonization, but also in the scoundrel interpretation of all achievements of civilization after its own degeneration, from shamelessness to taking pride in it.